If you clicked on this video, it's probably because you're trying to unravel the Kubrick mystery and you sense, like I do, that existing analyzers don't quite do the job. Well, you've come to the right place because I've taken on the heavy challenge of deeply explaining Kubrick. I think it is important, because understanding his filmography means questioning the last 500 years of Western history. I've already made several videos that didn't get much success, a long version that serves as an introduction to my general analysis of Kubrick, which you can find here, and a shorter one on Eyes Wide Shut that performed a bit better but left the audience stunned. I'm therefore returning to this previous format to introduce each of his films. I'll number them as 101, here, Shining 101, and then I'll make short capsules to explain in depth every detail connected to the general analysis. Very quickly, here's a summary of my general analysis. In a hermetic way, Kubrick shows us how a military, medical, food, technological, spiritual consortium has set up a system of mass mind control governed by AI. This time, I go further by demonstrating that he identifies the British royal family as the main designer and guarantor of the establishment and maintenance of this system. Another major axis that I explore in my work on Kubrick is that he laid the foundations of a new cosmology in the lineage of Jung for the new era we are entering, the era of perfect information. Following this very brief intro, let's now dive into The Shining, which is one of his most hermetic films, not to say opaque, but also one of his most important, as he himself said. Here, I'm going to start with the ending, because what I want to express is shown very precisely in the final image of the film. Jack holds a message in the palm of his hand, and a member of The Shining is holding his arm to prevent him from showing it to the public. I think it can't get more explicit than that. The Shining is very important on two levels. There is an occult message that Kubrick wants to convey to us, and on the other hand, The Shining is a training manual for reading Kubrick, since he displays all the cinematic techniques he uses in all his films to discreetly transmit dangerous ideas. You can find analyses of The Shining everywhere, ranging from the relevant to the ridiculous. Among the relevant ones, I retained 4, and I will add a 5th that I haven't found anywhere else, and which allows the other 4 levels of reading to be organized. These levels are not mutually exclusive. The first level of reading is that of alcoholic delirium. Jack is an alcoholic who flees his addiction, but it catches up with him. This is the most obvious reading, but it is not without interest, since alcohol is a key element of energetic control in the West. A second frequently discussed level of reading, but one for which I haven't found a complete analysis on YouTube, is Jay Wiedner's. He claims that Kubrick faked the Apollo 11 footage and made The Shining to discreetly confess it like a subtle mea culpa. This analysis is entirely irrelevant. Many elements in the film show it. In this reading, Jack Nicholson embodies Kubrick, who was recruited by Kennedy to keep the United States at the head of the global triad for a few decades, right in the middle of the Cold War. The Overlook Hotel, which can mean neglected, caught in a snowstorm, symbolizes the United States neglected by its elite. There are many clues that will be the subject of several capsules.
Danny is the rocket, he wears the sweater.
Room 237 is the 237,000 miles to the moon, etc.
One might think this analysis
is the big revelation of the film, but don't be fooled. This is only a tiny part of the secret. After all, Apollo 11 was just one small psyop among many, and I believe no one is fooled by the hoax anymore. A third common analysis is the one that sees a paranormal phenomenon of possession and spirits, due to the hotel being built on an Indian burial ground. This is also not without interest, especially when we understand that the space conquest is nothing other than a large-scale shamanic ritual in which a totem is sent into space to show that we are the strongest. This analysis connects with the previous one, in that the hotel symbolizes the USA, and one does not exclude the other. Finally, many analyzers lean toward the axis of mind control and the CIA's MK Ultra project, as we can see with the Monarch poster. Indeed, this is exactly what it is about. Jack enters the service of what we have become accustomed to calling the Illuminati. We will see that he precisely displays the actors and methods of mind control, food, waves, Kabbalism, etc. I hope you see, as I do, little by little, how these analyses fit together, because they are all actually talking about the same thing: the rituals of the elites to subjugate the world and maintain their power. However, there is one analysis I haven't found anywhere and which now seems obvious to me. Wendy is an ignorant descendant of an Illuminati bloodline, that of the Stuarts, the lineage of the kings of England, reputed to descend from Jesus Christ and King David of the Old Testament. We will actually see that this is the key to all of Kubrick's films and a recurring theme transmitted in a very subtle way. tartans of the royal Stuart and Stuart clans for Danny and Wendy. The hotel manager named Stuart, Wendy's very posh outfits, and her evocating question during the visit. Have you ever hosted members of the royal family? Implying the British royal family. Then there's Grady Lloyd, the final photo, and the many clues we can detect in his other films. So how do we understand The Shining in depth? We'll need to take a detour through Jung. The hotel manager has a large red book on his desk that refers to a very important work by the mystic psychoanalyst Jung titled The Red Book, a kind of symbolic grimoire in which he foresaw the industrial massacre of the Second World War. According to Jung, world wars occur due to an imbalance in the collective psyche. This collective psyche is precisely what sacrifices are supposed to balance. If we go back to The Shining and pay attention to the elevator and the bloodbath that pours out of it, we see the first elevator indicating 1 and the second indicating 2. This is a reference to the 2 world wars and to a passage from the Red Book that I'll show you here. You wanted this war, this is good. For if you had not wanted it, the evil of this war would be insignificant. But with your will, you have made this evil important. If you fail in making this war the greatest of evils, you will never learn to overcome the act of violence and the struggle with what is outside of you. Therefore, it is good that you wholeheartedly want this evil, which is the greatest of all. You are Christians. You chase after heroes and await redeemers who must take suffering upon themselves for you and spare you the Golgotha thus. You build a mountain of Calvaries that covers all of Europe. If you succeed in making this war a dreadful evil and in throwing countless victims into this abyss, it is good, for it will make each of you ready to sacrifice yourself. For like me, you approach the fulfillment of the mystery of Christ. You already feel the iron fist of inflexibility on your neck. This is the beginning of the path. When blood, fire, and cries of distress fill this world, you will recognize yourselves in your actions. Drink your fill of the bloody horrors of war. Satisfy your hunger for killing and destruction. Then your eyes will open and you will see that it is you who bear such fruits, but at the core, you are horrified by yourselves, which is why you prefer to run towards everything else rather than towards yourself. I have seen the mountain of sacrifice, and blood flowed profusely from all sides. When I saw what pride and strength filled men, what beauty shone in the eyes of women when the Great War broke out, I knew that humanity was on the path of self-sacrifice. The spirit of the depths has seized humanity and imposes self-sacrifice on it. Do not seek responsibility here or there. The spirit of the depths has taken hold of the destiny of men. Just as it has taken hold of my destiny, it leads men to the mystery through this flood of blood. In the mystery, man becomes himself the 2 principles. He becomes lion and serpent. What comes after 2? Perhaps a 3rd World War. Jack Torrance, who is clearly a bad teacher and a bad father, is therefore recruited by The Shining to perform the ritual sacrifice of the Stuart descendant, which in theory avoids the 3rd World War. Just as Kubrick was recruited by Kennedy to delay it by faking the Apollo 11 missions. Indeed, Kennedy spoke a bit too soon when he announced the success of their mission in advance, no matter the cost. You will notice that the hotel manager character, Stuart Ullman, looks exactly like Kennedy, and we will see that in detail in a capsule. Jack is therefore entrusted with heavy responsibilities and gets to work. He places his desk in the middle of the hall at the exact intersection of 2 elevators with rocket-like patterns to his left on which he frantically throws his ball, and 2 elevators to his left and behind him. It's a strategic position. He becomes the guardian of the elevators, and no blood comes out as long as he repeats his sentence, because he starts projecting the same sentence infinitely on his typewriter and on the collective unconscious. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, which can also be read as A11 work and no play. A11 as the acronym for Apollo 11. The original saying is completed by all play and no work makes Jack a mere toy, meaning that playing all the time and not working turns Jack into a puppet. This phrase is attributed to James Howell, an important 16th century English author. Another saying Jack utters is hair of the dog that bit me, which means fighting evil with evil, associated with John Hayward, another important English author who appears in the character of Haywood Floyd, who embodies evil in 2001, A Space Odyssey. In any case, it was Kubrick who filmed the Apollo 11 project in a studio with special effects straight out of Mary Poppins, and it was broadcast on all the world's channels. We fall back on the mind control reading, of which broadcasting is an instrument. And as Danny says, if it's on television, it must be the truth. You now understand why Kubrick and Jack Torrance were recruited, to act as guarantors of the balance of the collective unconscious. But why Danny? To maintain hierarchies and power. The Shining, the dominant spiritual entity that we could also call the Kabbalah, needs sufficient spiritual power, which it draws through rituals such as cannibalism, also mentioned by Danny and formerly practiced by the Indians, at least in their burial rituals, human sacrifices, or energetic sacrifices. Jung talks about cannibalism of the dead in his Red Book. We sense from the start that Danny interferes with the plans because of his hereditary spiritual power. He largely senses the plan and manages to disrupt it.
with a little help from who knows where. Halloran is not Danny's assistant. He's supposed to ensure that the ceremony goes smoothly by observing what happens there. We notice that he lives alone in an almost empty apartment and spends most of his time shining in a dissociated state.
It is not obvious that the initial plan was to spill the blood of Danny and Wendy. It was probably an energetic sacrifice that was intended. But the fact that Danny resists and discovers how the shining works posed a problem. And we notice that Jack's murderous frenzy starts immediately when Wendy starts the generator in the basement. When Wendy rushes to see what's happening, we see two important elements, a suitcase and a crate with the word "overlook" crossed out. This very clearly means that those who control the mind control system are not in the United States. So to summarize, the English wanted to perform an energetic sacrifice, but since Danny proves resistant and intelligent, they activate Plan B, human sacrifice, and they do it through their mind control system via waves and magnetization. Another example of energetic sacrifice or Kabbalistic control is shown in The Shining. During the scene where Wendy meets a psychiatrist, the front page of the newspaper on the table is about the Carter collapse. This event was a charity race with the entire American establishment,
CIA, FBI, military establishment,
where President Carter suddenly collapsed with an almost cardiac arrest. The media fallout caused him to lose the next election to Kennedy. This is a perfect example of a coordinated Kabbalistic attack against him that had physical and energetic repercussions on the target. It is therefore the Stuart Kennedy line, who never do anything with their own hands, who regularly organize sacrifices through manipulation and social engineering, passing them off as news items and using characters like Grady the waiter or Lloyd the bartender banker dressed in Bordeaux red just like Jack. We will notice that O'Grady is an important Irish family, very close to the British royal family and involved at times in cases of pedophilia or transgenderism. I'll let you check that yourself, but we'll do a capsule on it. Lloyd almost certainly refers to the famous insurance company in the city of London that notably had a monopoly on freight ships in the Strait of Hormuz. All these sacrifices therefore have the objective of postponing the Third World War, which is laudable but only delays the inevitable, and of setting up the system of subjugation through radio and electromagnetic waves, allowing total large-scale mind control, whose implementation was carried out in 2001 thanks to the September 11 attacks and the Patriot Act. It should be noted that Kubrick died 666 days before January 1, 2001. I know this is already a lot to digest about The Shining, but I wanted to stay with the big picture in this video. If you liked it, please like and share. Now I'm going to introduce the elements that will each be the subject of short capsules. Danny, the rocket and the wave-generating reactor.
Danny,
And Wendy, the ignorant Stuarts.
Grady, and Lloyd.
Close friends of the English crown.
The English sayings Haywood and Howell.
The connection to the city of Bordeaux.
The story room and Thompson's codification of fairy tales.
Stuart Ullman in The Interview.
The Red Book and Jung.
Halloran, protector of the Stuarts.
Air conditioning and deliberate continuity error with the air vent.
References to mind control, radio, MK Ultra, food, water, telephone, TV. I will share the videos as they are produced in the coming weeks if, however, I am not dead or in prison. In any case, I have compiled most of these elements in my book, so it is not lost. You can find them on Amazon. My latest is titled Le Mathen Kubrick Jungian. They are also available for free on archive.org if you look for them. With that, may God keep you, and see you very soon.